Hi, I'm Griff Richards. I'm with Athabasca University in Canada, and I teach a graduate course in instructional design. Typically, I've got about 20 to 30 graduate students who are taking the course at a distance. They're all online. It's in a cohort-based group. That means that they're all taking it at the same time and moving through the same assignments and processes at the same time. And what I do that makes the course particularly interesting, I think, for me and also for the learners, is we have a lot of collaborative learning activities that we introduce. For example, like most online courses that have a cohort, there's a welcome conference where people say, hi, this is who I am, this is what I'm up to doing. We take it one step further. We have a collaborative activity because I want them to think about quality all the time. And so when I want them to think about quality, I want them to value what we're talking about. And to get them to value what they want to talk about, I try to use a bit of Krathwohl's idea of the effective domain and actually get them to state what they value. And then, so they say, well, what my best learning experience was so-and-so. My worst learning experience was so-and-so. And then we have a group activity where they work in groups of 4 or 5 students. And in those groups of 4 or 5, they have to say, okay, well, here's the top 5 or the bottom 5 of do's and don'ts that they can come up with from the list of what the best experiences and worst experiences were. So that gets people thinking about quality and what they can do in an online learning environment to make highly quality, highly motivational learning for their students when they go out and develop materials. So that's the toes in the water approach. And the real reason why we're doing that and getting them talking about quality is because the next activity that we're going to do online is going to be a learning object review where we actually give them some quality criteria for learning objects, and they go out and they sleuth up a learning object online and they rate it against certain criteria, and then they exchange those objects with each other and they rate the objects that each other have selected, and again they come back and they come up with a community review of quality. So it gets them to look at a whole variety of different learning objects that they wouldn't have looked at otherwise. They say, why is this good, why is this not good, but they also look at it in terms of quality. Then they begin to realize in their discussions, because we have a phone call. Now, who ever has a phone call conference in an online learning course? Well, I do. And the phone calls are very cheap, they're very accessible. We have a bit of time to juggle the times because we're people who are in France or in Brazil. They have to figure out when they can call in with whichever group. But we have a 1-hour phone call where we get together and talk about the outcomes of the ratings. And in that, they begin to realize that quality isn't just what they think, but quality is actually something that a community agrees upon what is quality. And what is quality this year might not be quality next year, because quality changes with what the norms of society are. So they get very animated about this, but the whole idea of having all of a sudden a phone call and people talking and hearing real voices of people, that is highly motivational. We have one other activity which is interactive, and that's when they have a final project they have to produce for the course. They do a peer evaluation where they get to select a peer evaluator and they swap their assignments, and they look at and they actually go through and mark the other person's assignment about 3 weeks before it's due. And that means that when they're doing that, one, that means they understand the marking rubric because they have to apply it to somebody else's. And 2, it makes them think about all the things that they have done differently, or the things that the person they're marking have done differently. And this makes the course highly motivational, and of course anything they learn from that formative evaluation they can incorporate and they go back and change their assignment. My goal is that they'll have a successful outcome and that they'll develop instructional materials that are exceptionally in quality, that cover the content, and that they'll be motivational for themselves and others. And I think that by integrating all this collaborative activity, it makes the course both interesting and exceptional. I did a little bit of research this year. I sent out a questionnaire to the students and I asked them, of all the different activities, I think there were 7 activities that were collaborative. I asked them which ones they liked and which ones worked for them, which ones were better. But I also asked 2 last questions. I said, if appropriate, would you include collaborative learning activities in courses that you design? And the last question was, if appropriate, would you consider incorporating collaborative activities in courses that you teach? And the answer on both those questions was overwhelmingly positively from the point of view of the students. So the learners are not only getting an exposure to collaborative learning activities, sometimes it's their first exposure, but in terms of are they accepting those values of collaboration, are they seeing the value of that? Those are the 2 questions that tell me that this is something that they will go on and do in the future. Thanks very much.